Nalini Bonnier. I'm a director at Deutsche Bank here in Stockholm, and I have the pleasure of moderating this session, Reimagining India, Innovation and Sustainable Environment. So, we all know that India has already surpassed China in terms of economic growth. According to a study from Harvard University, India will be one of the world's fastest growing countries with an average annual growth rate of 7.7% until 2025. However, India will also be topping another less flattering ranking. It's the World Health Organization's list of the most polluted cities in the world. Out of the 10 worst and most polluted cities in the world, 7 of them are in India. So the air in Delhi, for example, is 8 times more polluted than the air in Paris. With high growth, India will need to find innovative technical solutions to leapfrog past the developing part of the path of many Western European countries. So India will not want to replicate that pattern and instead try to find other ways of developing so that they don't have first growth, pollution, and then having to clean up the mess. A sustainable development path will be required, and that is what we're going to be talking about. We have Anumita Roy Chaudhary, Executive Director at the Center for Science and Environment from India, here. And you are going to be talking about India and sustainability 30 years from now. We have Östen Ekengren, next to her, Vice General Manager at the Research Institute, IVL Svenska Miljöinstitutet. And you are selected as an environmental advisor by the Indian government. And you are going to be also discussing the cooperation between EU and India regarding technology, resource-efficient solutions to reduce waste, and how to better manage scarce resources, such as water. Sweden is called the world's most modern country, and many Swedish companies are very strong in innovation and R&D when it comes to improving air and water quality. Many of us wonder, how can technology and innovation help India achieve sustainable development goals, and for example, the Paris Climate Agreement goals, without compromising economic growth? Even the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has said that India will not only meet the Paris goals, but even overshoot them. So to the outmost right, we have 2 very prominent Swedish entrepreneurs. Mr. Bengt Ritri, who is the founder of Blue Air, a global leader of indoor air purifiers, with a large market in emerging markets and also entering the Indian market. And as Bengt Ritri is a serial entrepreneur, he has also started a company called Blue Water, which is focusing on cleaning water for households in emerging markets, and also how to produce bottled water on your own. And I know that Bengt also has a passion for providing research money to extract plastic waste from the oceans. And then last but not least, we have the entrepreneur Mehrdad Mahjoubi, who is the founder and CEO of Orbital Systems, or the Tesla shower, as his company is often referred to in Swedish media. And you developed this shower when you were doing your thesis at NASA in Houston, Texas. And the way I understand it, your assignment was to design a shower for a man-led spaceship on a mission to Mars. So your challenge was how to use the water as efficiently as possible. And your showers reduce the water consumption by more than 90%. And as the same water is reused, you use nanotechnology to clean the water to such a high level that academic hospitals in different parts of the world want to use these showers. And your mission is to reduce the wastage of water when people take showers. So now that we have this economic development in India and more people will be taking showers, this could be a very interesting proposition for urban development. Now, I'm not going to stand here and talk all day. I'll give the stage over to you, Anumita, please.
Thank you, Nalini. I think you have asked a very critical question. How do we reimagine India within a very explosive growth story? And it is explosive. To think that only urban Indians in the year 2030, about 590 million, that's much more than the total population of many European countries, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that 40% of our children are going to be in that urban and very toxic urban setting, and knowing what you've just said, that air pollution and whole range of pollution in our cities, particularly air pollution, which has emerged as the 5th largest killer. And that has a huge implication for public health in the future. At the same time, we know that it's just not the growing numbers, but along with that, the lifestyle pressure, the consumption pressure with the growing middle class. That's going to be one that's going to be the defining factor. But at the same time, there is a double whammy of poverty. The urban poverty today, to know that at least 70% of Indians can spend only less than $2 a day. So at the same time, you're talking about a growth which is also equitable, equitous. And then the growth story also means the huge infrastructure. Just keep one number in mind, that the total passenger kilometers that we travel today in India, that's going to increase 15 times by the year 2030, which means the infrastructure that we are going to invest in, especially keeping in mind that more and more people are going to use cars. Now, how you're going to lock in carbon and pollution in that infrastructure are seriously challenging. But then the growth need not be a bad word. And that's where I think I would really like to emphasize on the fact that it is more important to understand that within this growth story where our opportunities are and understand our strength on which we need to build. Just to give you 3 examples, we are going to be building a lot more houses, a lot more offices and retail in the future. But we know that the total building stock, and construction of the building stock that makes huge demand on energy, water, land, biodiversity, 60% of the new stock that will stand in the year 2030 has not yet been built in India, whereas Europe has already built its 80%. So while you're only retrofitting for change, we will be doing new change, new construction. Therefore, if we can set the terms of new construction right now, then we can be hugely preventive. At the same time, understand the number that we need to celebrate, that when we are talking about the motorization and growing number of cars on our roads, but even then, today, more than 80% of Indians are still using public transport, still walking, and still cycling. So if we invest in the 80% and not in the 20%, then imagine that we need not see that devastation that can happen with rapid motorization. Also keep in mind the fact, if you look at the energy use, 40% of our primary use is still biomass and renewable. It is the poor of India who are still within the biomass energy economy. But they have an opportunity to bypass the fossil fuel. If we can get our new renewable agenda right, then we don't have to get caught and remain within that fossil fuel. To end, I would like to say that if we understand and celebrate the strength and understand that how we need to leverage our strength, then the opportunity, and there are already signs of it in India, that how we can leapfrog. So already the way to say this, to be able to set an ambition that India can today actually generate 22,000 megawatt of renewable energy, okay, which can be done in a decentralized manner, where to give poor people the access to the renewable energy. At the same time, when we are motorizing, I think India is very important to point out. I think the only major vehicle producing country in the world where they have skipped one stage of emission standards, which is Euro 5, and have decided to go directly to Euro 6 by 2020, giving auto industry only 4 years to make the transition, which Europe has taken much longer. Now, and at the same time, to set an ambition that in the year 2030, all cars can be electric, that you can actually link up electric mobility with public transport as a win-win, and with that, massive scaling up of public transport options. So with all these, and then to be more water-wise, water-prudent, to have a completely new set of frame for change where you have a circular economy, where you don't have waste, but the waste which is a resource. Now, if we can get the frame right, and if we do not make the mistakes from which the developed world have already learned, and they are now in the process of undoing the mistake. So if we can keep ourselves away from the wrong and the mistaken notions of development and focus on the right way to do it, be preventive, be precautionary, and invest in the frugal culture of India, I think that with that, we can make the big change.
So that's really very high ambitions, Anumita, which you're talking about. And I'm actually very interested in this number that you said 60% of the cities have yet to be built. And perhaps, Östen, if you would like to follow up on this, in your role as an advisor to the Indian government, what do you see as the main challenges?
I will try to answer a bit different, because everyone here, you are very strong sitting for a whole day, and you must be strong. Because what we need to do is to minimize the emission of greenhouse gases. That was we have agreed about, and there is only one guy in the world being opposite. So we must work very hard for that. And at the same time, very many people are moving to the cities. So this means that to find solution for this, we must have solution for the cities. And I will tell you what is the best innovation we have in Sweden. The best innovation is called eco-governance. This means that you can connect the different silos when you develop a city. You set up a goal for the part of the city or the whole city. And then each sector, like water, air, waste, traffic, everyone must come together and find the way how to optimize this. And this is the most important experiences that we have in Sweden, how to move on. Everyone is talking about the new technology. We need also new technology, but everyone has to learn how to do this connecting silos. Give you a few examples. Water. We see wastewater as a problem. We should look differently. We have water shortage all over the world. It will be even worse, even here in Sweden. So we must see wastewater as a resource. Treat it better and reuse it to farmland, industry, even to groundwater. And at the same time, we should produce energy from the sludge. We should also recycle the nutrients. When we are richer, we generate more waste. We must try to change this, but we must also take care of the waste. In Sweden, only 0.5% goes to landfill. The other one, more and more, we recycle material. This is the way forward. But on the other hand, we also recycle energy, biogas, electricity, and hot water. And that has helped us to dramatically decrease the emission of carbon dioxide in most of the cities, and also lower the emission of particle. Because particle in the city, as mentioned in introduction, is a huge problem. Last year in Europe, 465,000 people died before they should die because bad air quality. And we are talking about regulation about 10 microgram. In India, you have levels between 500 to 1,000. So you must do something. And what can be done is also go into mobility. Therefore, we have also some experiences from this. More public transportation, as mentioned, use more bicycle, we are going back to that, but also sharing of the vehicles, and also introduce, like we have done in Sweden, biogas, biodiesel, ethanol, and electricity-driven cars. And I tell you, there is no sustainable city in the world. Everyone talking about it, but there is no one. And we have to move in that direction. So we are trying now in Sweden to sum up our experiences in the Smart City Sweden. And we start now to sharing these experiences with India in different projects. And I'm sure that if we are doing that, and if we can include IoT and big data, both India and Sweden will be able to reach the UN Sustainable Development Goal 2030. I'm quite sure about that. And you must help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Östen. I was thinking if we go over to the entrepreneurs now. Bengt, maybe you would like to start off by talking a little bit about your company, and then also the challenges that you see in Asia and especially on the Indian market.
Oh. Good afternoon. I thought maybe you could join me in Indian experiment. First, you had a long day, and I like a lot of things in India with yoga and meditation. So maybe if you could join me in the experiment of closing your eyes and breathing in and breathing out slowly. And then we'll do one more time, in. And while you breathe out, maybe you can try to remember this morning when you woke up, and maybe you can remember your first breath this morning, and maybe you can remember that you brushed your teeth and drank something and had a shower. And then while you're at this meditative stage, maybe you can think that you're in India 4,000 years ago, and there is a lot of clean air and fresh water. So that is the dream, and India was actually 4,000 years ago a very advanced nation already then. When it comes to, for example, clean water, there was a lot of water for everybody, and there was clean air. And the population at that time could have fresh water for bathrooms, etc. And just over the last 200 years, that disappeared. Maybe because you was not maintained, all this water aqueducts and everything, because you always assumed somebody would take care of it, and maybe when the British moved in, somebody always assumed somebody else will take care of it. So now the situation in India with the water side is like it changed a lot. So the reality after our little meditation is that as we heard that and know that the air quality in India and the water quality is bad. 1 million people or more die every year of air quality and of the water quality as well. Air pollution is terrible, and there's a lack of water, of quality water and quantity. And the aquifers, the water level have been sinking a lot. So over the last 20 years, I have been, as an entrepreneur, always thinking an environmental entrepreneur. What can I do to help to make the world better? Like all of us here want to make a better world. And that has been driving me and the company. And I have built a company called Blue Air, which make air purifiers, and turnover is about $250 million, and we are the leading company in air purification. And I have also started a movement in India with our help of our team called Clean Air India Movement, where we teach children in school to plant trees and so on. But the big challenge is now, what can we do with water? So we have a company started which is called Blue Water, and it's about two things. One is about how can we fix the oceans, because all of you have read about that there is soon more plastic than fish in the oceans, and the oceans, 2/3 of the air comes from the ocean. So what can we do about that? So our organization is looking at different possibilities for taking out what's there and try to fish it out and try to come up with new ideas. And then when it comes to drinking water, there's a huge lack of clean drinking water in India, among other things. And so we need to find a way to harvest the water we have and to maintain it better and to purify it. So our company, Blue Water, is thinking about trying to find out how and in which way, what solutions are there to distribute water, because if you don't have clean water, you get a big problem, and India is heading for a huge problem. So we're looking for a new method. And I have learned that in general, there's a lot of silo thinking in India. So we're trying to work with different organizations, and how can we set up an organization that makes it possible to purify the water that is around, so that maybe people can set up a business to bottle water and that you can utilize water which is normally not drinkable. So working together and finding solutions is what we would like to discuss, hopefully, here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bengt. And I also... Bengt is also a great friend of India and has donated several hundreds of air purifiers to school children in underprivileged schools in different parts of India, and I understand you have a great commitment to this cause. And so Mehrdad, Östen was saying that wastewater should be seen as a resource. Would you like to talk a little bit more about your company? I understand this is very relevant to what you do and also how you see the Indian market.
Sure. Thank you for being here. I started off as an industrial designer focusing on Mars missions. And the main challenge with Mars is not getting over there, because we've been able to send robots and we can actually manage that part. The actual challenge is resources and householding, food and shelter. And obviously, when you are so wired into looking at Mars, you very soon understand that the way we live on Earth is not sustainable to replicate that on Mars. So you simply have to use your resources better. Based on that, I came up with a way of recycling water, because that's simply how we need to use our water in the habitat, and realized that that solution could obviously be used on Earth. If you just look at the problem of how we're using water in the homes today, in my opinion, is that we have a linear consumption, meaning that 10-minute shower in Sweden, we use 12 liters per minute, so that means 120 liters of water that we use for a shower. And because we like to shower in around body temperature degree, we need roughly 5 kilowatt hours of heat. So it's a quite consuming device or application just for getting clean. If you actually in real time reuse that water, you can not only use less than 10 liters of water, but also use less than 1 kilowatt hour of the energy. And what I think is super important is that you're not only saving a lot of resources, but you can control that the water is sterile. So as Nalini was mentioning, we have this product in hospitals, healthcare facilities, nursing homes, not because they necessarily lack access to water, but because they can guarantee to have Legionella-free showers. And what I find super interesting with the whole developing part of the world is that if you look at our infrastructure, exactly like we heard Anumita say, it's pretty flawed in the way we use water. So if you look at how every Swede in average use water per day, it's 200 liters per person a day, and 75 liters goes to showers. If you were to think that the billions of people around the world who also want to take a shower every day are going to use the water the same wasteful, with same wasteful approach as the Swedes, we simply don't have enough, and it simply would be way too stupid. So just by looking at, by implementing the shower, you can go from 200 liters a day to 130 liters a day. But I think the journey doesn't stop here, because I've seen the other way around when you actually integrate it more. So for example, just getting the shower up and running in our case, you need 5 liters of water. I don't know what that is.
It's
okay.
not a signal that you can okay.
Can you still hear me? No. I can take the mic. Hello? Okay, perfect. What I was saying is basically, in the case of actually reusing water, we need 5 liters of water to get the loop going. What we do right now with our first application is when the shower is done, we just flush that 5 liters down the drain. We don't technically have to do that. You could easily just use that 5 liters to flush your toilet, but that's the next step in the evolution of this kind of approach to the home. So, because we always talk about water and clean water in the home, I really want to emphasize one thing, and that is water should be clean enough for the purpose which we are to use it. So the worst example we have in Sweden is, in my opinion, that we have drinking water quality in the toilets. That is, too clean, in my opinion. So by just being smart and thinking and just approaching water as a limited resource, I think there is tons of potential here.
Thank you, Mehrdad. So going back to Anumita, instead of wasting 200 liters of water to take a shower per person, if you think about 1.3 billion Indians, a solution where you have 5 liters of water which can be reused and brought up to the highest quality.
Absolutely.
Given the urban scenario you're thinking
Right.
about, how do you view these?
Absolutely.
ideas?
I mean, listening to all of you, it was really very interesting for me. And it resonates very well what you said, that why is it that when we are treating and cleaning up water with so much of chemical energy, and then 80% of that is flushed down the toilet, right? Now, and clearly today, and as we are saying even in India, and that's where I see the opportunity for the uptake of this new technology that are coming up, the whole innovation that we can absorb today. It's possible because we are now beginning to look at water efficient fixtures. And there is now even a legal and regulatory mandate is coming up that all new construction should be fitted with water efficient fixtures. And therefore, with this kind of intervention and this innovation, we can minimize the use of water within the household. And then at the same time, reutilize and reuse that water and not allow even a drop to flow out of the complex. Now that's a huge possibility and an opportunity for us. And we should look at, and we must look at it from the perspective that regulations, policies, and behavioral change all should create the opportunity to absorb this innovation. At the same time, when I heard you, when you said that, that it's possible for now the community to again to clean, provide, to treat and provide clean water, that's, I think, very empowering. And if you can disseminate technology and in a very decentralized manner where the community have access to this kind of technology, where they can treat, they can supply and meet their local requirement, but with a rider that it also has to be affordable. Within the Indian context, technology application should not increase the price of water beyond affordability. So, but it's a great possibility, and we need to look into this. The air purifier question is a little bit of a tricky question for us. We certainly know that, yes, air pollution is a big problem in Indian cities, and air purifiers do open up it allows us to breathe clean air inside our rooms. But so while it is a solution up to a point, but at the same time, we always want to put out this rider that technology should also not be used by the rich in our country in a way that they can isolate themselves from the larger problem. And as a result of which, we lose the push to clean up the air of the city. Because today what we are beginning to see, our municipal water quality is not improving because the rich have the option to clean up water in their kitchen, right? But air is such that you cannot, so you can't always be living inside enclosed rooms, okay? While you need clean air to breathe, you also need your oxygen. Okay, the schools, children require the oxygen. So here, we need a judicious application of this, but this should not be a standard application. So that's where the rider always works for us. And a very important point that you made about looking at the mobility and that the importance of shared mobility in the future. I think that's a very important point that we certainly feel that no longer we need to look at car-based mobility as something inevitable. I think today increasingly we are realizing that we are experimenting with that more of shared mobility. Even the automobile industry, they realized that use of car only for personal use is going to go down. Already the data globally is showing that. So if the whole new experiment can open up where we can reduce our dependence on personal vehicles and completely reinvent the way we travel, I think that will be a very big solution for the future.
And if I may ask you then, how do you, given the scarcity of these resources, how do you view the development? Because wouldn't we see more and more of a polarization between the wealthy who can access the clean resources and those who don't? And how do you see the situation with pricing evolving going forward? Maybe I can ask you that.
Maybe I need this one. This is a good question because for the poor people it's a really bad situation worldwide. I think the hope is that you can increase the amount of people being more middle class. But if you introduce solutions, I think you need a mixture of what you are talking about, reuse the water from the shower. You can use, like in Japan, after visiting toilet, they first clean the hands, the same water is used to flush. Or you can use, do as in Orange County in California. They take all the wastewater from Orange County, treat it to such a level that it goes back to groundwater. So you need a mixture. But if you come very close to the desert, as you do in India, as you do in many countries, it will be very problematic with a water shortage for sure, and also energy shortage. So I cannot give the solution, but you asked before about giving advice to the Indian government. Advice is to speed up. It's sometimes too bureaucratic. And the main problem for Swedish companies going to India is how to do the funding for the investment. That is a real problem. So I think I cannot answer your question, but I think that India and also China is doing a lot also to helping the poor people and finding a way forward. I hope also that this will happen in Africa, but the solution must be very different. So you have low price solutions that can help, and then it will also be high. But also that you must introduce the pricing of water. I don't know really everywhere in India, but I think it's similar like in China. You build a long channel to the north on transport water, but you don't raise the price. So how can the consumer know that you must be careful about the water if the price doesn't go up? And this, I think, is a real problem with pricing.
And subsidies.
Yeah, it must follow the real cost.
Maybe you would like to say something about this, Merdad?
Sure. Can you hear me? Perfect. Do I actually need this? Okay, fine. Regarding the pricing, we have some clients in Middle East, and I think that has actually been the most challenging place when it comes to selling the product in terms of a classical market economy approach. Because of the fact that for the native or the citizens of those countries, the water is completely subsidized.
Sorry, but what is the water cost in Sweden? So we get a starting point.
Yeah, sure. So, for example, here in Stockholm, water is around 10 kroners per cubic meter. Okay. The highest water price in Sweden, I think, is around 20 kroners. And if you look at it in, for example, India or China, it's around a third, sometimes a fourth. But the reason why there is a business in saving water in Sweden is mainly due to the energy cost of heating that water up. Unless you have district heating, then it's way cheaper. So it's not straightforward reducing water and saving water. But what is the most scary is that in a country like United Arab Emirates, where all of their water is desalinated, and they have desalination plants that actually use oil to clean the water, which makes it very expensive. Water is free to use for the citizens. And the ones who actually have to pay, the expats who do pay, they pay a fixed price based on their square meter of their flat. So so they can just have the tap open the whole day or not use anything. There isn't any correlation between their consumption and what they pay for water. So all of the sales is together with a local government entity who actually stands for the cost. It takes more time. It's way more complicated than someone who actually knows what they pay for and why they do it. So if you just price it correctly, it will become transparent and people will understand the value of it. Yeah.
So that sounds very strange. In Sweden, where we have an abundance of water, we pay around 10 kroners per cubic meter. While, as you were saying, in the Middle East, it's almost free. It will be like a fraction of a krona, where there is such a scarcity. Yeah. And of course, the cost for desalination, as you were saying. So do we know what the situation is like in India?
So what you see is a huge distortion in the market today. So when you're selling municipal water, it is priced very cheap. The municipalities cannot even recover the cost that they need to treat the water, and forget about even investing in high-end technology to treat the water. But at the same time, the consumers, while we are paying a pittance for the municipal water, we pay hugely to buy bottled water from the market, which is commercially available. At the same time, the industry, when they're withdrawing groundwater, so today, a water-intensive industry like Coca-Cola, so they can withdraw groundwater and pay nothing for it. So whole range of distortion playing in, and therefore we certainly need to move towards more rational pricing system and more perhaps consumption-based billing system. And that will really have to be, it's really the way forward today.
I was thinking, Bengt, you were talking about the solution that you're looking at, that people could themselves actually bottle the water so that they actually don't have to buy Coke or other soft drinks. How do you see that possibility?
First, I want to say, as an environmental entrepreneur, there's a lot of possibilities. You can start a company or start selling water meters in the United Arab Emirates. That's a big market for that. But when it comes to, we think that in general, there's actually every minute there will be 1 million bottles of plastic sold. So that's polluting the world. Plus, that often the ingredients are not so good of that. So we were thinking, if we find a way for people in India to, and elsewhere, to locally purify the water and sell it. Like most of the bottled water, for example, in US and other places, they're purified tap water or groundwater, and it's transported around the world. We ship Perrier and other waters across the world. If we find a way that we can do it locally so we don't have unnecessary transport and no unnecessary sugar and artificial ingredients, and if we can make people setting up a business like that. We have the hand-in-hand movement. It's popular, like women set up a small business. If they can do bottled water and sell that, and then you have it much easier to access. That becomes a democratic right, and they can add the things, and they can do their own drinks. Everybody wants to maybe do the lemonade that we liked when we were small. So that means that people can go back to do things they like and not just buy things that big multinational corporations want us to buy. So it becomes a more democratic issue.
So you decentralize, and people can do it pretty much on their own then.
Yeah.
So just going back to you, Asta, now, it sounds like there are a lot of challenges and also some possibilities. So what do you see as, if you were to focus or boil down the main advice, where would you be looking at if we focus on the waste and water scarcity area?
I mean, the Indian program for smart city, I read what they want to have. Most of them want to have better solution for water and for waste, and also air dimension, because all those three are essential for humankind. And I think you can share experiences from other countries, but you must also build up better systems so that you don't come in the situation as we have in northern India, where we run a project. We have to find out the piping for water, and then we realize the richer you are, you have your own pipes. So if you don't have money, no water will come. So they must build up more system that is more like in Sweden, that it's equal for everyone that you build up. And then you must have also the mixture of private money, in my mind, and government money and will. But I think, in my mind, India is moving in the right direction, but it will take time. But I think those areas are very important. But then also thinking about consumption, because it came up when you have more and more money, you start to consume more and more, and new problem come. So this is also advice to start thinking about those issues. Otherwise, you can run into even severe problem.
And then finally, maybe Anumita, where will the funding come from to find more egalitarian solutions for sustainable development? Like Östen is saying,
just
the water.
Heard you saying, and very right. So if I just take your water example today, if you look at the way we are doing it, we see an obsession with end-of-the-pipe solution. So just set up huge treatment plants, right, just to clean it up. But even with that treated water, there is no roadmap what you do with that clean water. because that clean water, which you have cleaned up with so much of energy and chemical, is again thrown back into the dirty drain again, right? Because there is no reuse policy for that. At the same time, there's a huge investment happening in the pipe network so that we can transport water long distances. So the entire water paradigm today is getting led by huge infrastructure, okay, of construction and contractors, where you're just laying down pipeline, laying down huge treatment plants. But we have to move away from that a bit. We now need to look at more decentralized solutions, which are small, which are local, within the confines and the control of the household and the community. So if you can decentralize the technology and give community the access so that the primary treatment happens at the household level, you reuse that water, you reduce the overall burden on the infrastructure to treat the dirty water, you can reuse your water, and that is the paradigm towards which we need to move towards. So the technology has to come with the right policy framework. It's just not only technology. Technology is a solution, but whether the solution is being implemented the right way and whether we are minimizing the need for resources, whether we are reusing the resources, that is the much bigger issue and concern for us. And India particularly, where we know that traditionally we have an enormous and a very strong tradition where the culturally and the communities across the country have been harvesting each drop of rainwater and using within their community. Those technologies, that wisdom will have to be nourished, nurtured, but will have to be combined with the modern technology and solution for the scale and the impact of sustainability that we need.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out the importance of policy. Östen, would you like to have the final word?
I was just to say something different, because I think it's too much wording about localized solution. In my mind, that could be helpful in some area, but we have studied Mumbai for 2 years now. We have studied Delhi. I cannot imagine to have localized water solution for all the people in that city. Like in Stockholm, we have also 3 big treatment plants, but we studied possibility to introduce some localized solution. But to say that we should shift to totally localized, I think is not.
But you were not saying that. I don't think she was saying
okay,
that.
if that, then I can agree. But I think more that the large plant in India should be stressed to do like in California, to treat the water more so it can be reused. That will be open a possibility to have more water.
Well, thank you all for this, for your participation, and thank you for attending this. And for me personally, I must say that I feel embarrassed about these 200 liters of perfect drinking water which I waste every day, and I'd love to find ways to reuse that. Thank you very much.
And thank you all the panelists. Thank you, Anamita. You've come all the way from India. And all of you who have been here from the morning. This has been a fantastic day. I mean, this was a new concept for us to really try to reduce the timings for the sessions and try to make it really impactful. And I think we've had a fantastic day with great speakers. And if you had not had the opportunity to attend the Stockholm Culture Festival, please do so. India is the theme. We have a fantastic Indian market right in front of the Royal Castle. They're great shows, they're great performances. Thank you once again. Have a good evening.